Donald Trump takes an axe to programs for low-income Americans, but with any hope, his axe swing will be as bad as his golf one. This is just another day. One of life's toughest dilemmas is having to choose one thing over the other when you desperately want both. Luckily, in some situations, we've catered to this predicament by combining those two things. Can't decide between chocolate and vanilla? That's what Swirl is for. Tough time deciding between a romance or a comedy? Problem solved. Not sure if you want to raise a son or a clipped toenail? Why not both? And it turns out this also applies to our current economy.
With all of the hysteria over tariffs, we know the jobs are being created, and it is much better than expected. At 177,000 jobs added to the economy in April, this proves Donald Trump's point that the economy is doing well.
You probably saw some numbers today, and I have to start off by saying that's Biden. That's not Trump.
When you talk about the economy, this is Joe Biden's economy.
That's right. It is so tough to decide whether you should own the current economy or just blame the previous administration, so why not do both? And I get it. It's like, I want a piece of positive financial news, but I also want something incredibly depressing. Well, today is my lucky day.
We have just received a copy of the president's budget request for fiscal year 2026. The president has submitted this request to Congress just this morning. They're proposing the lowest non-defense discretionary spending level since 2017. And at the same time, they say they're asking for historic increases for both defense and border security. They say they'll be cutting by $163 billion. That's mostly coming from cuts to DEI programs, climate initiatives, what they call federal government bureaucracy. They're eliminating things like the Fair Housing Program, canceling $15 billion in infrastructure law money for climate projects, as well as about $6 billion for that electric vehicle charging program enacted under President Biden. On the increases side, they're increasing defense spending by 13% and homeland security spending or border security by 65%. That includes $500 million for immigration and customs enforcement. They also say they're supporting veterans.
The Trump budget plan contains $557 billion in non-defense spending, a cut of $163 billion from last year. It increases money for defense, border security, and air safety, and makes cuts to education, environmental, and foreign aid programs.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding things here. The president who campaigned on cutting waste, fraud, and abuse has personally proposed giving a 13% increase to the Pentagon, putting their budget at over $1 trillion, even though their department has failed 7 audits in a row. Although I guess that tracks with Trump's view of the DOD. You've got a department that cannot pass an audit, and so they're rewarded with a raise. And you have the leader of that department who divulges classified military secrets in the family Thanksgiving group chat, and he gets a strong vote of confidence from the commander-in-chief. But the Pentagon isn't the only prospective winner in Trump's new budget. Turns out the world's richest man could find himself getting even richer. Trump's proposal slashes NASA's budget by 24% year over year by doing away with the current space launch system. But there's talk that it could be replaced by a certain someone else's.
The budget phases out the grossly expensive and delayed space launch system, rockets, the Orion capsule after just 3 flights. Essentially, that will be replaced with something. Is there a chance that Elon Musk could benefit from that?
Look, this is $1 billion investment in the Mars.
Yeah, sorry, Meemaw. Just because your retirement account is drying up doesn't mean we should tap the brakes on Elon's insatiable need to fillet himself in his billionaire playground. But if the DOD and Elon are making out like bandits, surely this will be a boon for the agencies that keep Americans healthy.
Major cuts to the NIH and CDC.
Oh. Guess there's no more money for our health agencies now that we've spent it making sure that Musk can turn a profit on a second planet. The reality is that Donald Trump has proposed halving the budgets for the National Institutes of Health and the Centers for Disease Control. But don't worry, when that measles outbreak spreads to your town, we've got plenty of money to just bomb the problem away. Trump's proposed cuts will strike a blow to low-income housing assistance, to food stamp programs, and even wipes out $4.1 billion to the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which helps low-income Americans pay their heating and cooling bills. Because apparently, Donald Trump is the only guy who thinks Ebenezer Scrooge was a piece of shit at the end of the book. I mean, honestly, the lack of shame never ceases to amaze me. Trump routinely brags that he wants all Americans to win, but he's clearly making victory a hell of a lot easier for the wealthy. Low-income Americans will be hit the hardest by these cuts, and they're also the ones who will be hit the hardest by Trump's tariffs. But the way he sees it, That's a price that he's simply willing to have them pay.
Somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, you know? And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally.
Man, no wonder Trump is beefing up the Pentagon's budget. They're going to need it for this war on Christmas. Just so I understand here, Trump was so concerned that department stores weren't saying Merry Christmas anymore, so his fix was to make sure no one could afford to go inside of any of them? And look, I'm no marketing genius like Donald J. Trump, but I have some doubts about the potency of "you can't have any gifts this year" as a campaign slogan for Republicans. The reality is that this man has no clue as to the level of suffering he has inflicted upon low-income Americans. It's less their doll count and more their dollar count. The people who will suffer most from Trump's budget cuts are the ones he uses as avatars for the struggle that he and his cronies have never nor will ever have to endure. Billionaires don't need the government's help when a hurricane rips through their town and wipes out their house, but poor people do. And sorry, not in the form of dolls. They are looking for their government to lend them a hand that Trump is trying to make harder to reach. He's proposed massive cuts to FEMA, which will affect disaster relief all over the country. Pretty ironic considering the one type of relief this administration could really use is disaster relief.
$163 billion that would be cut from agencies like the Department of Education, which of course the president has moved to completely dismantle.
And look, I get it. If you destroy the ability of Americans to get a good education, they can't do the math on how badly this president is screwing them over. And again, these cuts are not even-handed by any stretch of the imagination. Trump wants to cut $49 million from the Education Department Office for Civil Rights, $4.5 billion from K-12 and Title I programs, which help low-achieving students, especially in high-poverty schools, and $691 million for foreign students to attend the U.S. institutions. Guess it's a good thing that someone only came here to model. Ha! Phew. Donald Trump's actions are nothing less than a complete remaking of America, one that lifts up the wealthy and holds down the poor. But he has a choice to make. Will he destroy this country's programs through his reckless tariffs, or is he going to do it by cutting funding to essential jobs that provide safety and security to our nation? My guess? He'll do both. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.